Good morning, everyone. This is Matt, your host for the day. And this is your 5-minute warning. So get comfortable and get ready. We're going to start in, 4 minutes.
Hi, Matt.
Good morning, Pam. Well, how are you? Pam, how are you?
Fine. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody.
Hi, good morning.
Pam, I don't know if you knew this. Did you mean to have your camera on?
Oh, is it on?
Well, it's not on, but you have a box.
I know. Yeah, let me try to get rid of. Yes, thank you. There we go. Little gear thing, right? Thank you. It's distracting. Yeah.
Good morning, Juliet. Can you hear us okay?
Two-minute warning. Isn't it crazy that it's almost football season?
Oh,
The Steelers play this week?
really? Football's starting?
I think it's play this week or next week.
That's preseason games.
Yeah.
Still, it has that feel of fall is coming.
Don't say that. He was leery, so it's already there.
Hi, everybody.
Good morning, Carolyn.
How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Okay.
That's great to hear.
It's 10 hours.
There it is. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the August meeting of the Long-Term Services and Support Subcommittee of the chain of whatever is above that. You're here for the Long-Term Services and Support Committee meeting. You're in the right place. Before we get to the boring stuff, Pam has some very exciting things to talk to you about. Go ahead, Pam.
All right. This is Pam. Just to begin with, this is a reminder that this meeting is being recorded. Your participation in this meeting is your consent to being recorded. And with that, we will take attendance. All right. I know that Matt is here and I am here. Abigail Foster. Abigail Foster. right? For Allie Cronley, we have an alternate, and I'm not sure how to pronounce your first name, Joey or Joie Mantry? Andrea Costello.
I'm here.
Great. Austin Colley, attending as an alternate for Anna Warheit. And someone has background noise. Could everybody who's not speaking please mute? Perfect. Thank you. Carol Marfisi.
I'm here. How are you, Pam?
I'm great. Nice to hear your voice. Neil Brady. George Fernandez. Ginny Rogers. Jay Harner.
Good morning.
Hi, that was Jay.
Yep, this is Jay.
Okay, great. Kathy Cubitt.
This is Kathy. I'm here.
Hi, Kathy. Laura Lyons.
Morning.
Morning. Linda Litton. Lloyd Wirtz.
Present.
Hi, Lloyd. Lynn Widener.
Good morning. I'm here.
Morning. Shell Garrett.
Shell is here. Good morning.
Pam,
Morning.
can I stop you just for 1 minute? Who's Christian Allen? That person seems to have an open mic.
I'm the room.
Matt, this is Mary. Christian is the sound in the room, so his mic needs to be on.
Is that okay? Is it the sound we're hearing is the sound of the microphone in the room?
Correct.
Oh, that's always an issue. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. I apologize for what I'm going to do to this first name. Padraig Tagni.
I'm here.
Okay. How do I pronounce your first name?
Patrick.
Padraig. Okay, great. Natalia Gomez.
I'm here. Good morning, everybody.
Hi, Natalia. Rebecca McTaggart. And Ryan Johnson.
Present. I'm here virtually.
Okay, great. All right. Have any members joined since I started the attendance?
Yes, Linda Litton.
Okay, great.
Good
Anyone
morning.
else? No.
Good. This is Neil Brady. Good morning.
Morning. Any additional members? All
Hi,
right.
Pam. This is
Yeah.
Paula. Joey Mantry is on for Allie Cronley.
Okay, great. All right. All right, then. We are going to move to the housekeeping and committee rules. So again, this meeting's being recorded. Your participation in the meeting is your consent to being recorded. This meeting is being conducted in person and as a webinar. To comply with logistical agreements, we will end promptly at 1 p.m. To avoid background noise, please keep your devices muted and the microphones off unless you're speaking. If you're attending the meeting in person, please keep background noise to an absolute minimum. The room is fitted with ceiling microphones that pick up everything. One of the chairs will report in-person attendance. Remote captioning is available at every meeting. The CART captioning link is on the agenda and in the chat. It is important for only one person to speak at a time. Please state your name before commenting and speak slowly and clearly so the captionist may capture conversations and identify speakers. Please keep your questions and comments concise to allow time for everyone to be heard. Webinar attendees may submit questions and comments into the questions box in GoToWebinar or use the raise hand feature to be put in queue to speak live. Those attending in person should use one of the microphones and wait to be called upon to speak. The tabletop microphones are reserved for committee members. Microphones are limited, so you may need to wait for OLTL staff to bring one to you. The general public should use the microphone on the stand in the rear of the committee tables area. OLTL staff are available for assistance. Before speaking into a microphone, use the power switch on the top middle of the microphone body to turn the microphone on. The switch should be pushed towards the end of the microphone you speak into. When you're finished speaking, push the same button toward the bottom of the microphone body to turn the microphone off. Time is allotted on the meeting agenda for 2 public comment periods. If you have questions or comments that were not heard, please send them to the resource account email found at the bottom of the meeting agenda and on the LTSS Subcommittee webpage. In the event of an emergency or evacuation, everyone must leave the building and assemble in the first responders plaza. OLTL staff will be available in the safe area in front of the elevators to provide any assistance. For people who are there in person, please see the back of your agenda for more evacuation information. And I will turn it back over to you, Matt.
Back to me?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Oh, well, yeah. And then I guess Julia's next.
Yeah,
Julia's next.
I guess I'm it. So Tag, you're it now, Julia.
Great, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Apologies that I'm joining virtually, but I was unable to be in Harrisburg this morning, and I do miss seeing folks in person. So let's get started. Pretty excited with this first segment before we get into our usual agenda and usual routine. We wanted to share in our excitement. Back in April 2026, Governor Shapiro signed an executive order 2026-2 establishing a commission, an advisory commission on people with disabilities. And since then, he has been busy, and they have appointed the members to the commission, and they have appointed the executive director. So the purpose of the commission is to gather information regarding the experiences and needs of people with disabilities in Pennsylvania, all aspects, review, evaluate, and assess programs affecting them, provide the governor with information and recommendations regarding how best to meet their needs, and provide information about programs and services that may be relevant to the needs of people with disabilities in Pennsylvania. And so the Governor's Advisory Commission on People with Disabilities consists of up to 30 volunteer members and is responsible for advising on and advocating for programs, policies, and legislation that benefit Pennsylvanians with disabilities. And with that, I am really excited to welcome to the LTSS Subcommittee meeting Dr. Josie Badger, who serves as the first executive director of the Governor's Advisory Commission for People with Disabilities. And she is going to lead the commission's effort to advise the governor on all the policies and initiatives that improve the lives of Pennsylvanians with disabilities. In partnership with the commissioners, state agencies like ours, community organizations, and disability leaders across the Commonwealth. She works to advance accessibility, increase representation, and ensure disability perspectives are meaningfully included in the state government. And I have had the pleasure of working with Josie on the Employment First Commission and other topics that we have collaborated on. So with that, I want to hand it over to Dr. Josie Badger and say welcome. Over to you, Josie.
Thank you so much, Juliet. And thanks everyone for letting me be a part of this call. I'm really excited to both be able to bring some of my personal experience, but a lot of what we're hearing from the state to these conversations. And I know I'm in great company here with the number of representatives here. And so, you know, as Juliet said, we're getting started. So we just had our first commission meeting. We have all of our officers are appointed, and we have 3 work groups. The work groups for this year are health and mental health, community integration, and education/youth development. And so those groups will be doing a huge amount of the actual work in those topics. My opportunity is to kind of connect the department, the governor's office, and all of these great commissions together and ensure we're sharing information and work to inform the commission and all of you about what we're doing. And to I hope to really create more of a collaboration with among all of these groups that exist and are working on these issues. I think one thing that I don't want to do is duplicate efforts or be working against each other. And so these meetings like this are so important. One of the initial efforts that I've been really involved in is around some of the Olmsted work and how Pennsylvania is responding to it. And so you will see some things coming out in the near future regarding our upholding of the Olmsted language and spirit. And I'm excited to be doing that. And right now, within the work groups, they are still identifying exactly their priorities for this year. As I mentioned, this was their first meeting on Saturday, and of course, they're still pulling those together. But anytime that you all have events that are coming up that you know are happening, whether they're directly LTSS or disability related, please let us know. Would love to be able, when possible, to have one of our commissioners involved in supporting that. If there are issues that you feel I and or the commission should know about, please let me know. I'm going to put my email in the chat. So it's my first three initials, JOS Badger, BADGER at pa.gov. But we also have an email that I'm kind of using for individuals who maybe don't necessarily want to talk to me, but are talking to me, if that makes sense, to more of a public email, and has disabilities at pa.gov. I'm putting that in the chat as well. And so that is for anyone in the community who wants to share things that are going on, and anything that can be helpful. And that is both go to me, Jose Badger at pa.gov and disabilities at pa.gov. So please feel free to email me, share that information. Is there anything else that Juliet, Paula, any of you would like to know? I'm also open for questions.
Yeah, at this point, I would open up to questions from the subcommittee members.
Does anybody have any questions for Josie?
Yeah, Lloyd Wertz here. Josie, welcome aboard. Certainly very happy to hear that this commission has been established. Happy to hear that you're in charge of it and looking forward to the direction it takes going forward. However, I will warn you that 3 years ago, the governor initiated the Behavioral Health Commission when there was a $100 million allocation that was placed in the enacted budget and was to be determined as to its division by that commission. At the end of the work of that commission, that $100 million went to the Department of Education, and we have yet to know exactly how it was spent and whether it did anything to improve the behavioral health services that are involved in the community or in the educational setting. About a year and a half ago, there was a mental health commission that was established, and the determination there was that it was going to help coordinate and establish the way mental health is delivered within the Commonwealth. And even more disappointing than the first, I still haven't seen the report from that commission. It may have been
It is
given,
actually
it may
being
have been
finalized right now. I've seen
Okay.
it. I've physically seen it.
I will also look forward to doing that myself. But I'm just giving you a little bit of the background that we've experienced in the community from the advocacy standpoint and saying commissions are great things, but they're only great things if they do something. And we will look forward to that coming out of this commission. Thank you.
Yeah, no, and if you want to see, things get done, they hired the right person. And so I am excited to be the outlier commission that, does a ton of work. And even when things look like they go off on the side, things are still happening. And as I said, like that report, I know is in its final draft, and so that is on its way. But I also want to validate what you're saying, that sometimes it's hard to see what's actually happening. So I hope that we are able to provide more of a visibility to what's happening, and I can promise that the governor is committed to disability inclusion, but that I, as the ED of this commission, will be working incessantly to ensure that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions?
The only thing I want to extend my congratulations. We couldn't have got a better person than you have, director of the council. And I have a question. If I have a particular issue, do I email it to you?
Yes.
Or do I email it to somebody on the board?
You can come straight to me. Number one, thank you. I really appreciate that. But use either of those emails that are in the chat right now. Those will go directly to me. And if it's a commission thing that's for a work group, I will direct it that way. If it's something separate, I will, handle it personally. And I think that one thing that we always want to elevate. Yes, if there's a personal barrier, let us know. We will be working to, make sure that we are triaging where we need to, but we are really focused on statewide issues. And so if you're seeing a barrier, like bring it to me so that I can do some research on whether this is something that's happening for a lot of folks. But if it's a personal issue, I'm happy to help direct you to somebody that may be able to help, but that is not necessarily what the full commission is there for.
And like I said, even though I am not a member of the commission, right now I'm willing to accept whatever help I could be.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And really, as we get started with the priorities of the work groups, I anticipate there being some listening sessions. I anticipate some work to gather feedback on specific issues, and I definitely have your digits. Also, I appreciate that, and that's true for anyone here. Any other questions or thoughts? Okay. Well, if it's okay, I'd love to stick around and listen. I might have to drop off at some point, but if I'm allowed, I'd love to stick around.
This is Pam. We'd love to have you stick around.
Great. Okay. Thank you. And once again, use those emails, whatever you need. And I'd love to connect. Thanks, guys.
Okay, thank you, Jody. Back to you, Juliet.
Thank you. All right, moving on to our regular scheduled program. So today for the agenda, we're going to go over our usual procurement updates, community health choices, requests for information, talk a little bit about provider revalidation, share a little bit on the budget, direct care worker compensation reporting, proposed rule, and the Pennsylvania Tech Accelerator announcement. In addition, I believe we were, if there was time allowed, also going to talk about the Transportation Work Group Recommendations Report that will be posted publicly very shortly. Okay, next slide. Let's get into it. So the CHC RFA was canceled. So the initial one in June. So we are going to be taking that off this slide momentarily. And we also in June published a request for information that was released. The public comment period for the RFI closed on July 15th, 2026. And the CHC program will continue to operate under the current CHC MCOs and agreements until further notice. And if you have questions about the RFI, you can send them to pa-pwrficomments@pa.gov. And if anyone still has questions about the former canceled RFA, you can send the email to pwrfaquestions@pa.gov. So, you know, I know in the room, the slides may be a little difficult to see. So the team will be, I think, dimming the lights to enhance the visibility of the portable screen that we need to use in the room. So I just got a message. So I just wanted to let folks know about that. All right. So as I mentioned, we put out an RFI. Go to the next slide. The public comment period exactly at noon on July 15th, 2026. The Office of Long-Term Living received over 200 comments from 61 commenters, and we are currently in the process of reviewing those comments, looking at those comments, and evaluating those comments. And after we complete that process, we intend to publish, as we have done routinely in the past, a high-level summary of the comments received and sort of OLTL responses to the comments where we can and where appropriate. And so I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you. We requested comments. We wanted to hear from folks, and 200 comments is fantastic. So thank you all for taking the time and being thoughtful and giving us a lot of feedback on the CHC RFI. It is going to take my team with 200 comments and thinking about it, responding to it and summarizing it, focusing on this in addition to all of their routine day-to-day work, in addition to all the extra federal level work that they've been doing. It is going to take us some time, so I am going to ask for some patience as we get through this process. I know you guys are all eager to know, but we want to do this well and thoroughly, so please have some patience with our team. We will look to add this on the agenda for LTSS sometime in September or October. So those would be hot meetings to attend. All right, next slide. We're going to just do a pitch again for provider revalidation. It's very important. And in addition, on April 23rd, 2026, the Department of Human Services received a state Medicaid director's letter from Dr. Oz requesting that the state acknowledge receipt of said letter and that Pennsylvania would undertake a swift revalidation of high-risk providers within 10 days. And within 10 days, Dr. Oz wanted the state to acknowledge the receipt of his letter and acknowledge that Pennsylvania would undertake a swift revalidation of high-risk providers. In addition, Pennsylvania DHS, Dr. Oz requested a comprehensive provider revalidation strategy to be sent to CMS within 30 days of the issuance of the state Medicaid director's letter. for those of you who don't know who Pennsylvania State Medicaid Director is, and that is Sally Kozak, Deputy Secretary of the Office of Medical Assistance. PADHS has satisfied both requirements. We submitted the 30-day provider revalidation strategy on June 5th, and the revalidation strategy is currently with CMS for review. PADHS is actively working internally on getting ready to implement the strategy and preparing policy documents and provider communications. We plan to issue more information in the coming months. I would also encourage providers to, as always, check in promise for your revalidation date. We had mentioned before, you can start your revalidation process early if it is coming up due. And certainly make sure that you are you are registered with our listserv. Our listserv is going to be the place where we push out all of this information to our enrolled providers. So if you have not registered for the listserv and have not tested that you get them, and make sure it doesn't go to your spam box, that's what you need to do now to prepare. This is how we're going to get our information out to you for the most part. All right. So let's get into the state fiscal year budget. This is at a very high level of things in the budget that impact the Office of Long-Term Living directly. So the first one is the budget adjustment factor. The budget adjustment factor was set to sunset this year. It has been reauthorized to June 30th, 2028. And beginning on January 1st, 2027, the Office of Long-Term Living will utilize a BAF not less than 0.86 in the non-public nursing facility rates. This means that there needs to be funds allocated in terms of, as we follow through the rate setting in the statute, one of our tests will need to be that we result in a BAF, a budget adjustment factor, not less than 0.86. In addition, we had some changes to the resident care and related costs language. The county or non-public nursing facilities shall demonstrate on its submitted MA11 report or form that 70% of its total costs, as reported by the facility, are resident care costs or other resident-related costs under our Pennsylvania Code. This was reauthorized to December 31st, 2031. And what's important also to note, particularly for our nursing facility providers, is that the language was modified in section 1603-T to the methodology in determining a facility's compliance with the requirement to make the methodology more clear. So as you know, this started, I think, was issued in 2024. And it became clear to us in the first year that, there was not uniform reporting on what we were receiving from the nursing facilities. So it was not clear to us. There were some facilities that met 70% mark and some facilities that didn't meet the 70% mark that, based on how they were doing their reporting, may have met the 70% mark. So it became clear that there needed to be some additional guidance and requirements to the methodology to make sure that we are all reporting the same thing in the same way. And providing that additional guidance was added this year. Okay, and we go to the next slide. Another important piece of the budget is that there will be a capitation payment delay to our community health choices managed care organizations in the state fiscal year 26-27. So capitation to our community health choices MCOs is typically paid in the month following the service. So for example, in the month of March, capitation is paid to the MCO in April. Okay. During a capitation delay, the service months of April and May will be pushed back and paid in July of the next fiscal year, along with the June service payment. So this year, the MCOs will receive payment for only 10 service months, but next year they'll receive, you know, the back due capitation payments. This is something that this is language that has been in the CHC MCO's agreement that the states can exercise this option. And the General Assembly has directed us to exercise this option, and we have provided almost a year's notice to ensure our CHC MCOs and our system at large can prepare for that. And while we at OLTL feel like with this advance notice, there shouldn't be much disruption to the system, because everyone is getting advance notice to prepare with transparency. I am going to take this moment to remind our providers that our CHC MCOs have been really, for the most part, good at processing claims a lot faster than what they are required to do so in the agreement. So the agreement has very specific language on how fast a CHC MCO needs to process a claim. So 90% of clean claims need to be processed. I believe it's within 30 days. I don't have it in front of me, so forgive me for that. Oftentimes our CHC MCOs are paying at a cycle that's much faster. So our providers, you've been used to a much faster pay cycle for the most part. And what I want to remind providers, having been a small business provider myself, is that we always need to be prepared, right, for an MCO being able to exercise their full time frame. So I'm giving you that heads up now, just as practical manner to remind you of that. Now, we hope the CHC MCOs will be able to continue their regular cash flow as you've been used to, but I did want to draw your attention to that. Okay, the LIFE program, which is nationally known as PACE, Living Independence for the Elderly program. There have been changes to the Human Services Code with regards to additional requirements that the Office of Long-Term Living are required to put in place. Thankfully, most of them are already in place and have been ongoing, but this just codifies it and makes it very clear. And there's some additional requirements that our team is preparing to implement as well. In addition to that, our LIFE program received an additional investment of $3.588 million to serve 300 additional participants in the LIFE program. So we were very happy to see that in there. Certainly, there were things in the budget that we wished were there that did not get across the finish line. And there's additional work and advocacy to continue for those pieces that are important to our participants, to their family members, to direct care workers, and to our providers. And I'm sure that you will continue that good work. These are the high level budget points that we wanted to share today. We are digging through the numbers and preparing. In past years, we provided you with the numbers chart, you know, of what was asked, what was in there, what the change was. We are still preparing those and we'll be giving a full report out at our next meeting. Okay. Now we're going into a review of the CMS access rule. I'm trying to be mindful of time because I know I might even be over time. But I had lost my place. And so in the access rule, there is the direct care worker compensation reporting. And if we go to the next slide, under CMS, ensuring access to Medicaid services final rule, the HCBS payment adequacy and reporting, which was section 441.302K and 441.311E, states must strengthen oversight of the Medicaid and Children's Health Insurance CHIP HCBS programs, including direct care worker compensation. So the core reporting requirement is beginning in 2028. States must report annually on the percentage of payments for certain HCBS services that are spent on compensation for direct care workers. This applies to homemaker, home health aid, habilitation, and personal care services, even if the states use different names for these services. So it really speaks to the service definition. So this applies to 1915C waiver and other HCBS authorities where services are covered by Medicaid. And so it applies to both fee-for-service and managed care delivery models. So if we go to the next page, we're going to go over the OLTL affected services. So for us, the affected services are adult daily living, basic and enhanced, half and full day, employment skills development, personal assistance services, residential habilitation, respite, structured day habilitation, home health aid services in community health choices only, because it's not a fee for service, and home health nursing. So treatment of certain payment data under self-directed service delivery models. So if the state provides homemaker, home health aid, habilitational personal care services under a self-directed service delivery model, where the beneficiary is directing the services and the direct care workers and that beneficiary sets the direct care workers payment rate, then that direct care worker's compensation does not need to be reported, and the state does not include that payment data in its calculation of the state's compliance with the minimum performance level. And that is because the common law employers are the direct employers, so we are not setting their rates, their wages. Okay, let's move on. There's a lot of information here. So direct care worker, here's the definition of a direct care worker that feeds into the required services that we will be reporting on. So direct care worker means any of the following individuals who may be employed by a Medicaid provider, a state agency, or a third party, contracted with a Medicaid provider, a state agency, or third party, or delivering services under the self-directed service delivery model, remembering the caveat that I just talked about. So it lists here registered nurse, licensed practical nurse, nurse practitioner, licensed or certified nursing assistants who provides services under supervision of a registered or licensed practical nurse, nurse practitioner, or clinical nurse specialist, a direct support professional, or as we would call them, direct care workers, a personal care attendant, a home health aide, or other individuals who are paid to provide services to address activities of daily living or instrumental activities of daily living, behavioral supports, employment supports, or other services to promote community integration directly to Medicaid beneficiaries receiving HCBS available under that subpart of the rule, which includes nurses and other staff providing clinical supervision. And then it goes through, and there are a lot of slides. It goes through additional things like the definition of compensation. What does that mean? On the next slide, which is salary, wages, and things of that nature. It has a list of excluded costs that we will not use in the calculation of the percentage of the Medicaid payments. So costs of required trainings, travel costs, costs of personal protective equipment, etc. And then there is a minimum performance at the provider level. So the state must ensure that each provider spends 80% of total payments the provider receives on total compensation for direct care workers. And at our discretion, we may identify providers determined by the state to meet its state-defined small provider criteria. We do not have that criteria for you right at this moment, but we are certainly working on it. So the reporting timeline, just so you know where we're at, July 2027, that's 1 year where we are Before reporting requirements begins, we must report on our readiness to collect and report on the direct care worker compensation data related to certain Medicaid payments. In July 2028, that's when we must annually report the percentage of certain Medicaid payments spent on compensation to direct care workers. In 2029, we are required to establish an interested parties advisory group to advise and consult on provider rates where payments are made to direct care workers. And in 2030, states must ensure a minimum of 80% of certain Medicaid payments be spent on DCW compensation. For our entire Medicaid program, OLTL is a part of that. There's a lot of coordination that's required across our different offices. I know many of you will have questions about 2029. That is a little ways off. We will be sharing out information as and when we are prepared to do so. But we wanted to make sure that you all knew where we were at in our timeline, which is August 2027. Gearing up for our first required reports.
I was going. But I got to be able to hear it. So
Linda,
that's
can you please mute yourself?
No, I can't. Okay. So because I have to go to work at 1 o'clock.
Linda, can you please mute yourself?
Okay, great. So we wanted to talk about on the next slide, one of the ways that we are going to be addressing collecting and reporting the data as required. The Office of Long-Term Living is going to be participating in the National Core Indicator, the State of the Workforce Survey. So you guys can take a look at that, what's on that survey, and kind of, see the questions that we'll be asking. So the National Core Indicators State of the Workforce Survey, or SOTW, collects data every year, offering a detailed snapshot of workforce conditions at the state level. The survey is completed by providers and captures key workforce indicators, including information on turnover ratios and vacancy rates, wages, benefits and compensation, recruitment and retention, and demographics and training. This is a national survey. Pennsylvania has not typically, or OLTL has not typically participated in it. We are electing to do so now as one of the best ways to collect the data in a standardized format that could then be compared across different states. So if we go to the next slide, the current National Core Indicator State of the Workforce, they are doing work to combine aging and physical disabilities as well as intellectual and developmental disability providers. Currently, it's separate. This is the last sort of year it's going to be separate. So we're going to do the physical disability one now, and then in all future years, it'll be one combined survey. So the current survey tool is being revised by Advancing States and NASDIS, the National Association of State Directors of Developmental Disabilities, in collaboration with the Human Services Research Institute, so that the collection of the required direct care worker payment adequacy reporting under the access rule requirements are met. The Office of Developmental Programs, or ODP, presently uses the NCI State of the Workforce and has been for the developmental disability programs. They too will be using it for the same requirements for the access rule. We're trying to align to make it easier for our providers and our team and to have consistency. So we intend to use the revised State of the Workforce for required reporting in 2028. So all providers who provide affected services, which is the list I talked about before, will have to annually complete the NCI State of the Workforce Survey to remain in compliance. So the next steps. We will provide an opportunity for advanced recommendations or feedback on outreach, education, and training of providers as we begin to think through these steps. We'll provide an opportunity for advanced recommendations or feedback on the Office of Long-Term Living's oversight and monitoring of the submission accuracy and appropriateness of data reporting as we begin to think through these processes and activities. So we are really looking forward to that partnership and that engagement. as we roll things out to meet the requirements in the final rule. Okay, there is a lot. How am I doing, Matt? I think I'm way over time, but I have like 3 slides. Can I just keep barreling through?
Can you not read them? Can you just kind of like summarize them? We are really over time.
Okay. So the next slide, policy is very specific, lots of information. So CMS has a proposed rule of amending the indirect hold harmless threshold of healthcare related taxes. So this is the rule that really impacts for OLTL the nursing facility assessments. So it has some specific guidance in there with additional reporting requirements and changes to how we do testing on those assessments and healthcare related taxes. So I'll go on to the next slide. There is a fact sheet for our providers who are interested about the amending the indirect hold harmless threshold of the healthcare related taxes. And public comments are due by September 21st, 2026. So again, as you know, I always encourage folks to exercise their rights to provide comments. We will be providing comments as well. And lastly, the Pennsylvania Tech Accelerator. Very excited about this. This project was made possible through ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act. Long story short, there is a whole slew of resources and trainings that we have posted to the pa.gov website. These trainings and resources are for service coordinators, all of the HCBS service providers, anyone who's interested from community-based organizations or even participants. If you want to know the process, it is on our website. We encourage you to go visit it because technology is going to be one of the strategies that we need to continually advance as we continue to face a human shortage to our workforce. All right, and that's it. Thank you, Matt, and everyone else.
I'm just going to pass it right to you, Pam.
All right, great. So Lloyd and I are going to report on the HR1 stakeholder meeting, which was held on July 14th. And I'll just start by sharing, Secretary Arkush, her initial sort of opening comments included a few things, including that the state did get 2 of their 1115 waivers approved for reentry and housing supports. And the other ones were not, but they'll continue to work on that. She noted that that we should be in it, what she described as a fairly manageable place for managed care programs in the budget this fiscal year. She made a comment that Lloyd and I both noticed, but weren't quite sure what it meant, where she said that she believed that that DHS will have to begin implementing some of the cost savings provisions connected to HR1 in fiscal year 28 and continuing in 2029, assuming that there are no changes at the federal level in the requirements. So that's sort of a question what that comment meant. She noted that the state's attorney general and states, including Pennsylvania, have filed a lawsuit challenging the interim final rule concerning implementation of work requirements in HR1 as not being based in the statutory provisions. The plaintiffs, including Pennsylvania, were hoping for a preliminary injunction that would have pushed back, hopefully, the timing on implementing work requirements, but that was actually denied by the court this week. So that means that work toward implementing work requirements will have to continue going forward at the pace that the very rapid pace that the federal government has set. If we could go to pay, and then I just wanted to mention also Just as background, what this presentation was largely about is implementation by Pennsylvania of work requirements, also known as community engagement requirements, which go into effect in January. I want to note these requirements affect the Medicaid expansion population. So in other words, people who are getting Medicaid through the expansion that was part of the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare. It affects that population and not people in LTSS categories of Medicaid. So by and large, these particular provisions where people have to show that they are working or volunteering, that I'm going to be talking about right now, are not going to directly affect people in LTSS categories of Medicaid. It will affect their caregivers, though. And it's important to remember other pieces of HR 1 will affect the LTSS population, immigrant provisions, and the overall effect on the budget of HR 1 in future years. So with that, if we could go to slide.
Hey, Pam.
Yeah.
Real quick, is there an easy way to know if you're in the expansion population?
It would be so first of all, you're not in the expansion population if you're in the waiver program.
Well, I mean, it's not for me. I assume there's people listening that may not.
You know, when I say you, I don't mean you personally.
All right, go ahead.
I mean you, the global you. So people who are in CHC are not going to be in the expansion population. I think it comes down to what your category is. I don't know if there's anything the department wants to add about a quick and easy way to know that. I think there's been talk, there was about trying to make an easier way for people to check that out. That's been under discussion.
You could have, I'll accept it depends.
Okay, great. We will take that question away and try to get a better answer than what I just gave. All right, so if we could go to slide 4.
I can just say, Pam, it is certainly being worked on and the contemplated, but I don't have details to share from OIM. So more to come.
Thank you. Okay, so we got information. So again, what we're talking about here is the work that the department is doing, getting ready for what I'll just call work requirements. And so information is going out to the affected participants, again, expansion population. So these are letters that are going out. Letters are going out August, September, so pretty much right now for current Medicaid recipients who are affected, informing them of these changes that are coming. People who are newly eligible will start getting letters between October and December, as well as everyone will also get texts and robocalls trying to alert everyone that this is coming. And then starting in January 2027, Medicaid work requirements for the expansion population will go into effect. It's going to be verified whether people are in compliance at their first renewals after January, after implementation. And at that time, people are going to have to show that they are meeting the requirement through either work, volunteering, or training, or attending school. They're going to have to show that they met the requirement for at least 1 month since their last renewal. So in a 6-month period, once we have 6-month renewals for this population, they'll have to show they met the requirement in at least 1 month. And then, as I was just saying, HR 1 also means that for the expansion populations, renewals starting in 2027 will happen every 6 months instead of every 12 months. Again, this is not for the LTSS population. They'll still have every 12 months. Next slide. Everybody hopefully has had the opportunity to get these slides, and we will share them with everyone. There's a lot of detail in them about how this will actually roll out for people. This is a slide that describes the sort of the time frame on how this will begin to affect for instance, a new Medicaid recipient as of January 27th. And it shows, like, as people are coming into the program, when they will have their renewals. when they will have to show that they are in compliance. One thing to say is when people get their renewals for the first time under the new rules, they will receive a packet with renewal things. If it can't be determined by information that the department electronically has access to or otherwise has access to, whether the person is in compliance with the work requirements, they will get a notice at the same time as their renewal packet saying it's a notice of non-compliance, saying we think that you're not in compliance, or we don't know that you are in compliance with these work rules. Here is what you need to do in order to verify that you are in compliance. All right, next slide. And then renewing as a current recipient, this is going to be sort of the time frame. People who are in, and it explains like when this will begin to actually apply to people. And we don't have a lot of time, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about this. But it explains that people will have their regularly scheduled 12-month renewal, and then after that renewal in 2027, that's when the 6-month renewals will begin. And just like and similarly, their renewal packet will contain a notice of non-compliance if the department can't determine that they are in compliance, and it will explain what it is that they have to show. All right, so if you could move to slide 8. Deputy Secretary Kristen Ahrens from ODP gave a presentation on how ODP is preparing for this, and she noted that, like people in LTSS, most folks who are enrolled in Medicaid services administered by the Office of Developmental Programs are not going to be subject to work requirements. But she also noted that their direct support professionals and their relative caregivers may be. And so ODP is responding to this by with an informational campaign on redeterminations and pushing out information to explain to people how to maintain and verify what needs to be verified in order to keep their Medicaid eligibility. And so here's some information about that. And people can watch for that. If you could move to slide, let's see. So I think I'm actually handing it over to Lloyd now.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lloyd Wirtz here. Good job, Pam. Appreciate it. The next section was handled by OIM Deputy Secretary Pam. Just briefly, what we just went over, what Pam went over so well, the details and the weeds are not something that I would tend to dive into, except for this time, because this time it can directly impact the individuals and their medical assistance benefits. Again, not folks in the LTS, not folks in the CHC program, but the people who are caring for them and other folks that are part of that MA expansion population that was brought into being under Tom Wolf. So while there are details, they still need to be attended to. The next section of the HR1 work group had a presentation by OIM Deputy Secretary Pham. She noted that the implementation requirements is a 380-page directive that's all set to begin in January 27. Good luck with that. And then Lexi Diesenroth, the Division of Health Services, shared there are 4 exception pathways as part of this guidance, the first being mandatory exceptions. So based on these federal rules, anyone under the age of 18, those already in Medicare, and certain mandatory Medicaid groups, and those having a recent incarceration are part of the mandatory exception groups. There's also a self-attestation for certain folks that they meet certain qualifications that can be accepted during calendar 2027. I'm thinking we can probably move on a slide or two. And those need to show that the individual had performed the work requirements, and these will be accepted through self-attestation, but these can only be used once and only through one period of renewal, just as a specific exception route. Other exceptions include former foster care, caretaker relatives, family caregivers, veterans with 100% disability, those with medical frailties in a drug and alcohol program, those who are pregnant or in a postpartum period. It was also noted that caregivers do not need to live with the needy individual for whom they're providing the care. The compliance with work requirements can include work hours, community service hours, work program participation, at least a half-time enrollment in an educational program, and any combination of those preceding and a monthly income of $580, which I think was calculated to equal 80 times the minimum wage in the Commonwealth. There are short-term hardships that can also override the limitation rules, and that's someone needing an inpatient admission, residents in a disaster area, those living in a high area of unemployment, and those, interestingly, those who are required to travel longer distances to receive treatment. I don't have the details on those longer distances, but I think that's an important category to watch, especially for folks living in rural areas in the mid-state of our Commonwealth. For those using volunteer hours that are performed, they can't be an independent. You can't just go and clean people's windshields on their cars. You have to actually have some verifiable resource that can document your volunteer hours. This can also be a half-time enrollment education program, but the hours must be verified by the educational institution. 1 credit will, for those not enrolled for half-time enrollment, 1 credit will count as 3 hours of work per week in order to meet those work requirements. There are key decisions by the DHS that were shared, and that is that they will accept attestations to verify as of 1/1/2028. So that's kind of the deadline for getting those in, and they include those that I just reviewed with you. Also, the DHS cannot accept the use of an attestation of income, as that is excluded in the HR1 mandates and will have to be verified. DHS hopes to be able to perform many of these reviews on an ex parte basis for an expansion recipient in order to establish continued eligibility. If it's determined that the individual, the enrollee, is not able to demonstrate that eligibility, then the issue and a notice of noncompliance will be sent, and we get to work with the individual and the county offices.
Matt. We're so far behind. Lloyd, can you try and sum it up quickly? We're going to have to take a break, and we got public comments. I mean, I'm sorry. Is there any way we can get to the end quicker? This is like
absolutely.
So much information.
In general, I do believe the DHS is on the side of the right in trying to attack the animalistic approach of an overbearing piece of legislation from the federal level. And if there's a way that we can help to do that, we should do that. And that includes advocating with your federal legislator and letting them know that these are real people that are being affected. These aren't numbers on papers. And I would encourage that and end my presentation at this point. Thanks.
Thank you, Lloyd. And your words at the end there are very, I think a lot of us share them. But that said, Pam, how do you want to handle this? I would suggest Juliet do the transportation report, then we do a break, and then do comments after that. If we could do a public comment period for the whole thing. What do you guys think?
I think there's 6 minutes to a break, and I can do the report in 6 minutes.
Let's have it.
All right. So as you know, this time, I think last year, there was a transportation work group that concluded. And, a lot of good work came out of that. A lot of good information came out of that, and recommendations came out of it. So if we go to the next, let me see here. Yes. And so with that, we are finishing up some accessibility portions of the reporting and the information that was compiled to prepare it for public posting on our website. We intend to post it shortly as soon as those final editing formatting pieces are complete. And then it will be up for public consumption. But the group did a lot of excellent work. It was led by Randy Nolan and other members of the Office of Long-Term Living team. And it is a cross work group of stakeholders with participant representation, managed care organization representation, representation from the MCOs, the other offices like OMAP, PennDOT, the transportation brokers, to look at all the different kinds of transportation that is provided to participants, to nursing facilities within our program. So, there was a lot of data review. For example, fun fact, almost 2 million total trips were scheduled by the transportation brokers in 2024, 1.9 million and change. There were 6 work group sessions that compiled it. And they came up with a methodology from all the different stakeholders to put forward their recommendations. And the recommendations kind of show a roadmap of sort of what we should try and focus on first, because we can't, boil the ocean, identify what is within, the DHS's control, what is not. And all of that information will be out on that report. So in the top 10 recommendations that were weighted by the voting groups, right? The first was expand the transportation network. The second was to integrate trip reminder calls and text messages, have some systems enhancements to the scheduler, improve post-medical appointment travel arrangements, re-educate service coordinators and participants, increase the collaboration with MATP, standardize the denial process across the different groups and brokers and offices, implement sensitivity training for transportation drivers, and pursue contracting with shared ride services, predominantly that are available for the older adults. So we have made some progress in some of these areas since the work group convened. So, for example, the recommendation on post-medical appointment travel arrangements, we've submitted proposed edits in the 2027 CHC agreement, adding transportation consideration to discharge planning to assist with better coordination with MATP. So that is still going through the works. We have been working with OIM to distribute large quantities of the updated Department of Human Services MATP brochure. So that's available in every county assistance office. And folks are kind of all playing from the same playbook with regards to reinforcing county level MATP outreach expectations. And, we are working on some additional considerations for next steps with regards to the MATP contracted providers, looking at ways in which that network can be expanded, evaluating potential changes in scope, flagging different recommendations and operational recommendations. So there is a lot of work still continuing on with this, but the nuts and bolts of it is the report will be made public, hopefully very, very soon on our website, so everyone can go through it and work through it and keep an eye on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Juliet. Now I have 11:10, so we have 25 minutes for questions, right? That's quick math. Do we have any? I noticed there's no questions in the box, right, Paula?
Correct,
Any-
Matt. No questions.
Any committee members have questions? Let's say online first. Wow. Anybody in the room?
Yep. Lloyd Wirtz here. I just want to refer back to the state budget, which is by Constitution mandated to be a balanced budget and established on July 1. This year we went over 2, since the budget didn't happen until after July 1, but included I believe that amounts to a 17% decrease in the payments made to the MCOs across the Commonwealth that are being pushed forward into the next year. 17% is a decent piece of change when you're talking about a state budget over $54 billion. And in addition, they can sit and look at a rainy day fund that totals now, I believe, $8.7 billion of unspent funds sitting somewhere in a bunch of bank accounts that are earning some interest, but are not being used for the purposes that they were intended in the first place. So if you have a legislator that sits in the Senate, perhaps he has an R after his name or her name, you may want to talk to them about, maybe you want to weigh the presentation values of, oh yeah, gee, we didn't increase taxes, we didn't increase spending as much, why don't you reelect me? I'd be thinking twice about that. Felt the need to put that in there. Sorry, thanks.
No, that was well said, Lloyd. Agree completely. Any other questions from committee members or people in the room? Are there any questions in the box yet, Paula?
Hi, Matt. This is Paula. No questions.
Wow. So should we give the captioner some time to rest her fingers?
Well, I can share some additional updates that weren't in my planned presentation. If
I
you'd
have
like
one
that.
question for you. We could do that. I have one question for you right off the bat. The presentation about the caregivers. What is that percentage at now?
I don't have that information for you
If you had to guess.
I wouldn't even be able to speculate. I would imagine most are very close to, if not at the expected spend. That's what I would expect and hope to see when we do collect the data.
Okay. Go ahead with what you were going to bring up.
With my second act?
Yep.
Okay. So many of you may have seen yesterday that, a group visited Philadelphia and had some announcements to make about the home and community-based services and fraud, waste, and abuse, and shared some pretty egregious examples of fraud within our system for some really bad actors. Unfortunately, there are bad actors that take advantage of our programs and rob from everyone else. And, we all work together to try and highlight, elevate, report, monitor, and be diligent about the services that we provide. And so there's a couple of things that I wanted to just highlight since I have time. One is that it was kind of pointed to
Julia, can I ask to make a real request? If you're going to talk about a bunch of things, can you address the Olmsted thing?
Oh, yeah. Do you want me to switch? Or do you want me to add
No. If you're whatever you were about to talk about, you just include it in there somewhere.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so there was a press release on Medicaid fraud with the Department of Justice. And in some of it, it sort of indicated that, Pennsylvania has the 5th largest spending on HCBS. And it seemed to allude that that's an example of that we're have a lot of fraud going on. Pennsylvania is the 5th oldest state in the nation. So, that is a good reason why we have one of the largest programs that serves older adults and people with disabilities. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that Pennsylvania is the first in the nation in convictions because we have been diligent in implementing best practices at the beginning at our eligibility process with a conflict-free assessment for our level of care determinations, with a very rigorous evaluation of any Medicaid applicant through our Office of Income Maintenance, and all the pieces that we have designed into our program for many, many years. Will fraud happen? Yes, because there will always be bad actors, and we will continually be pursuing them to end their profiteering and bring them to account. The Department of Justice also, and I think I talked about this a couple meetings ago, shared that they had opined that the states did not have to necessarily uphold the Olmstead decision in ensuring that everyone had access to community settings. It was very disappointing and disheartening to see that. In addition, they then doubled down on that opinion with their clarification, which was equally disappointing. But, Pennsylvania remains resolute, and you may have seen some short video posts messaging from the Secretary and Executive Director Josie Badger, Christine Ahrens, and myself, reiterating the North Star and the focus of DHS, which is to serve individuals where they wish to be served, to help them live their lives to the fullest extent that they wish to pursue their goals, to have the right to pursue happiness, which happens to be in very important documents in the founding of our nation. So, all this to say that, those opinions can be put out there. That does not change our mission here at the Department of Human Services and the Office of Long-Term Living. And Governor Shapiro is also, absolutely resolute in protecting the rights of people with disabilities and promoting the rights of people with disabilities across our Commonwealth. So is there anything specific you wanted me to go further into, Matt, on the Olmstead?
No, I just to touch on it. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So that's where we are with that. It's not going to change our day-to-day here in Pennsylvania in our continued efforts to provide people life-sustaining services at the right time, in the right place, towards their goals. All right. Any other questions? Topic areas?
Anything online, Paula?
Hi, Matt. It's Paula. No questions in the box.
Wow. Then I guess we will take our break.
Juliet, are you there?
Yes.
Hey, Juliet, it's George Fernandez. Quick question. Thank you so much for highlighting the press conference from yesterday. Just as I'm sitting here and thinking of all the different individuals that have to file forms and paperwork and become licensed, does the department offer some form of technical assistance in registration, in paperwork, in billing, to further help individuals understand how that paperwork should be filed? I'm a big fan of, going after bad actors and fraud and so forth, but I'm also a really big fan of being proactive in the education of filing paperwork and technical assistance for individuals that are providing services in this space.
Yeah, absolutely. Really glad that you brought that up. So we have a website full of provider trainings that providers can go to for their trainings. We have all of our kind of mandatory trainings up there. I can put the link in the chat for folks who haven't done it already to go to some of these sort of basic trainings that are available for anyone at any time. It goes over mandated reporting, adult protective services, the requirement for critical incidences, what participant-directed services are, risk mitigation, other HCBS services, the Act 150 services. It also has our technology services in there. There's a lot of services in Promise, trainings related to Promise and the Promise portal. There are annual trainings that Daring provides to providers with enrollment. If you're licensed through the Department of Health, they have a lot of trainings with regards to licensing and regulations. There's, folks can go through, having done this before, that are through the listserv, all of our bulletins. As someone who's been a provider, the number one thing that I can say is this is the most highly regulated, in my opinion, one of the most highly regulated industries. And so if you are going to be providing services under Medicaid, you need to love to read. That's just sort of a bottom line piece. And that is reading the waiver standards, reading the regulations that you are required to follow, reading the laws that you are required to follow, reading your contracts with the CHC MCOs, every single page, right? Attending all the webinars, reading our bulletins, coming here to ask those really great questions that you're asking, George, to be engaged. Natalia, the provider trainings are not provided in other languages at this point in time that I'm aware of. To answer your question in chat, Natalia asked if these trainings are going to be provided in other languages for LEP individuals. The provider trainings are not at this point in time. So, I would say providers should engage with their trade associations. Many of the trade associations also provide additional supports and trainings. One of the trade associations has free trainings for anyone. There are trainings that are specific to claims, fraud, waste, and abuse that we do. There are other also trainings that, folks can get from the Small Business Association or Department of Labor and Industry to make sure that you are on the right side of human resources and labor laws, right? We see some of that happening. So there is a lot of training and a lot of materials that can be digested by our provider communities out there. And if there are specific trainings, if you see that there's a specific gap in trainings, we can certainly address that and come out with more. But we've done fraud, waste, and abuse. We've done claims billing. We've done EVV trainings. There's a whole bunch out there. But yeah, thank you for raising that up and giving me a platform to summarize that.
Thank you.
Which is that are offered in that space of training. I would encourage to continue that conversation with limited English proficiency, specifically, in Spanish, Haitian, Creole, Nepalese, Cambodian, because those are the communities that are continuing to ultimately grow, with the age sector of the folks that we're providing services with. And if you don't know the rules, how can you effectively follow them? So I understand those trainings are not yet offered at this time. But I would be thrilled to be your champion in helping move that conversation forward with MCOs as to what are they doing to making sure that we are providing those trainings and registration and paperwork in the appropriate first native language of the person that's providing the services. I really appreciate your summary. Thank you.
Let me be clear. The information required to be provided to participants receiving services must be in their language of choice. This is talking about provider training. So participants should be receiving information in their language of choice.
Thank you, Juliet. I have some follow-up questions, but I'll follow up with you offline.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Thank you, Juliet.
Any other questions?
Hi, Matt. It's Paula. I have no questions.
Then should we take our break until 11:45? I guess we are adjourned until then.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. About 5 minutes left. If I could, is the next presentation going to be online or is it in the room? If it is in the room, could the people move to the spots that they need to move to during the break? Thank you. Just about ready to get started. Okay, welcome back, everybody. This is Matt again. We're going to move into the next section. which is recognizing and assessing cognitive support needs. I don't know, is this being done in the room?
Matt, can you hear me?
I can. Is that Randy?
Yeah, it's Randy. I'm going to run through this session, and I have the three MCOs up here at the table with me. We'll run through this session. Hope is that will be done by about 12:30 because I'm out of here. I have another event here this afternoon to get to. So we'll go through the first slide. So the first slide is a combination of feedback and outlook of the three MCOs. So we're going to be talking about recognizing and assessing cognitive support needs for our participants. Cognitive challenges can occur with many different conditions and may not always be obvious. Service coordinators do not diagnose cognitive conditions. Instead, they identify support needs through a combination of the comprehensive assessment, the NRI, observations, interviews, and input from participants, caregivers, and providers. The assessment looks at how cognitive challenges affect daily life, including communication, so it's understanding and following conversations, looking at memory issues, attention, spatial awareness, and changes in thinking or mental functioning, look at problem solving, judgment, and decision making. They look at how individuals manage their daily tasks, such as finances, medication, shopping, and getting around. And they look at the personal strengths of the participant, whether they have support needs, safety concerns, risk, and goals for the individual to be safe. The assessment's findings from the assessments help the SCs work with the participant and their planning team to create a plan that supports their independence, health, safety, and involvement in the community. Personal goals will align with the needs and abilities of participants for maximized independence. As a result, the care plan is tailored to participants' individual needs rather than using a one-size-fits-all. Cognitive support needs are reviewed and updated whenever there are changes in health, caregiver support, or living arrangements, or when anything changes with the participant. So it's kind of an overview of what the MCOs look at and how their SCs are trained on this. We have a list of questions that I'm going to go through. I'm going to read the questions. I'm going to pick on the MCOs in varying orders here to go ahead and give input on it. So let's go to the next slide. The first question we're going to talk about is how does your plan determine whether a cognitive impairment is present and whether it creates a need for past services, including supervision, and who all is included in that determination. And we'll go with PHW to open our conversation up.
Thanks, Randy. Good morning. My name is Taylor Dowden. I'm from PHW. So when we're looking at an assessment, we're looking at multiple areas to review the need of the participant. So part of that is the participant's responses to the questions in the interview when they're looking at the NRI. We always want feedback from their family members, any of their caregivers, any other individuals that participant wants involved. We look at the service coordination findings, observations of the participants' abilities while they're in the home to make safe decisions, complete tasks safely, manage medications, finances, and respond appropriately to health and safety risks. We also would then look at a medical records, diagnosis, or any supporting clinical documentation if it is available. So when we're really looking at that need for supervision, we're looking at their functional abilities, their safety risk, rather than just the diagnosis alone. We would authorize supervision when cognitive impairments result in impaired judgment, memory deficits, medication non-adherence, any wandering behaviors, and any inability to really recognize a hazard in the home for that participant. So we really are looking at that on the assessment findings, any supporting documentation, clinical reviews, really to make sure that the service in the home is appropriate to meet the participant's needs.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to UPMC.
Good morning, Randy. John McFarland with UPMC CHC. Our answer is the same in the information that was in the previous slide. This is, cognition is part of the assessment, the INTERI, so it is captured similarly rather than distinctly, but within all the questions we are asking about, yes, memory, short-term, procedural, situational, and yes, what would be called disordered thinking, speech, but also in the more common areas, independence of decision-making regarding your daily life tasks, your managing finances, taking your medication, shopping, distractibility, fluctuations in mental functioning, changes over time, interests, activities, including those that actually support cognition. How much are you engaging in, say, puzzles or other activities that help memory and other related aspects of cognition? But it's not a distinct aspect. And like all other areas that we are assessing as we are care planning with the participant about what services do they want from us and how we can assist, it's also whomever else they have chosen to include in the assessment process.
Thank you. AmeriHealth?
We would agree with that as well, just noting that each assessment is designed to be person-centered, individualized, and noting that cognition is different across. Is that better? Is that better? Okay, perfect. Thank you. So yes, I would agree with them as well, noting that each assessment is designed to be person-centered and individualized, noting that cognition is different across all of our participants. To assess potential cognition, the service coordinator would rely on combining informal observations, formal and standardized tools, as well as any type of medical or environmental factors. In addition, service coordinators also collect feedback from family members, caregivers, and clinicians as needed.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to move on to the next question. So next slide. Question is a diagnosis of dementia or another condition which affects cognition necessary for cognition-based functional needs to be included in the personal assistance service determinations? And if yes, is a diagnosis of dementia from the primary care physician sufficient, or must it be from a neurologist or other specialist? So we'll go with UPMC to start on this one.
Yes, so the answer is no. I mean, in the assessment process, we do collect diagnosis for a participant, which can include 16 different conditions in the average participant, their history, but we do not determine fixed service hours per diagnosis. Speaking just as a professional counselor, as well as somebody who's had loved ones go through this, issues of cognition can be secondary to a variety of conditions. Yes, dementia in all its different varieties, but also traumatic brain injury, delirium, a recent severe medical episode, stroke, cerebral thrombosis, cerebral hypoxia, infection, mismanaged chronic conditions, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, respiratory issues. If somebody's COPD is low oxygen, it will look like dementia, but it's not. Behavioral health, there's my bias, schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, major depressive disorder, some severe episodes.
Do you mind slowing down?
Sure, as long as not rushed off at the end, yes.
No, the capture is having a hard time keeping up with you.
Oh, my apologies to the capture. Yes, behavioral health conditions, recreational substance use, medication side effects, and yes, later stages of other neurological conditions. Overall, we will always recommend that people are assessed, of course, by their PCP, who is driving force in the CHC, being referred to the program, but also specialists accordingly. So but no, not one specific diagnosis.
All right, thank you. AmeriHealth?
Hi, I'm Gina with AmeriHealth. Cognitive-based functional needs can vary with multiple medical diagnoses, advanced age, acute and chronic illnesses, medication side effects, and other factors that, involve our day-to-day activities of daily living. All of these factors are taken into consideration when completing a utilization review. A confirmed diagnosis is preferred as it's in the participant's best interest to have a care team approach to make sure all functional and cognitive needs are being addressed and evaluated.
Thank you. PHW?
Taylor again from PHW. So same for us. No, we don't have to have a diagnosis of dementia. We want to take in consideration individuals with traumatic brain injuries, intellectual disabilities. We want to make sure that we're really evaluating their cognitive function and really looking at the need for cueing, supervision, assistance with safety with completing activities, maintaining health and welfare, and we take those considerations into consideration when we're looking at the past determination, regardless if there is a dementia diagnosis or not. So if there is any clinical information, it's great for us to have, just so we can look at that. But outside of that, it's not something that would be required to receive services with a cognitive issue.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to the next slide. Next question is, a cognitive functional assessment required? And what does such a cognitive functional assessment consist of, and who completes it? Mayor Health?
Hi, my apologies. Hi, this is Shasta with AmeriHealth. Yes, and we complete that. A cognitive functional assessment evaluates a person's mental capabilities regarding memory, attention, and function. We complete a comprehensive needs assessment with the participant and any other additional parties the participant may want to help represent them. Tools such as the NRI ask direct questions relating to these points. Additional questions may arise depending on the answers, such as if someone has a short-term memory issue. An SC might actually ask for the participant to memorize 3 words and ask them again in 5 minutes and see what their answers were. Were their answers complete? Did it take them additional time to answer those? Did they only answer a couple of them? Did they need additional assistance with that? We also take feedback from family members and caregivers, what they're seeing on a day-to-day basis. Obviously, what we're observing during the assessment, if they're attentive during the assessment, if they're able to answer questions accurately or completely. And additionally, we, of course, review any medical documentation.
All right, thank you. PHW?
Taylor from PHW. So no, we don't have a separate cognitive function assessment that we need to be completed. We're really evaluating the comprehensive needs assessment and the service planning process for each of our individuals. And the areas that, we are looking at that we include in this review is memory and recall, their decision-making abilities, the ability to recognize and respond to safety risks, medication management, ability to manage finances in their daily activities, any need for cueing, supervision, or assistance with activities of daily living, and the impact of their cognitive deficits on their health, welfare, and community living.
Thank you. UPMC?
My answer would be the same as PA Health and Wellness. We would not be doing an assessment separate one like would be performed by a professional psychologist or neurologist, psychiatrist, but our assessment of these skills are all embedded within the NTRI and to the same extent described by my colleagues.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to the next question. How does your plan determine the personal assistance services needed to support an individual with cognitive impairment? And how does your plan determine the time needed to address the participant's needs? I'll start off with PHW.
All right. So when we're looking at the personal assistant needs in regards to cognitive impairment, we're not focusing solely on the participant's diagnosis, but how that cognitive impairment really affects the participant's ability to perform their daily activities. So we're incorporating, again, that information from the participant, their caregivers, family members, and providers, and maybe any other individuals that are familiar with that participant's daily functioning. We're reviewing memory, judgment, decision-making, cueing, prompting, and supervision. We're also looking at the available informal supports and any other waiver services that the participant may be using to consider how that may be addressing some of their needs, and then looking at the unmet needs for PASS. So we are looking at the activity that they need support with, how often they need support with it, how many minutes it takes for them to do that activity, the frequency throughout the day that happens for each of our members, and the numbers of days per week that they actually need that support.
Okay, thank you. UPMC?
Similarly, this is a this is discussing the care planning process. Our service coordinators meeting the participant in their home, assessing the environment, assessing who's there to help them. We've just asked them a couple hundred questions on various tasks. So we're looking at the holistic picture. And as mentioned before, participants rarely have one condition that we're dealing with, but they have different ones that might be impacting their ADLs differently and how and why they do a certain task a certain way. So we need to review that and have the conversation, how much time it takes to do this or that for particular skills for which they stated that they do need assistance and to what extent, as well as if their loved ones are present providing feedback on that, but it wouldn't be based on one sole list. Now, we don't have a workflow somewhere that says if you have cognitive impairment, you only assign X amount of minutes to open a can of food or something to cook. It does not exist. This is a conversation that we're doing for the model.
Thank you. Mayor Health?
Ashley with Mara Health. So much my colleagues, we follow a similar process. We do review progress notes, walk me through your day. For any observed or reported needs related to cognition, we conduct a 1-year look back to the last assessment, the current assessment. We look at the personal services support tool, the Inter-RAI, helps us to identify any changes, declines, any concerns that are related to the participant's cognition. And then we do use a collaborative approach. So if we need additional information on the participant's level of cognitive impairment, we will make outreach to the service coordination team to help obtain that information, which can help support us in making sure that we are getting the most accurate picture of the participant's needs to ensure their safety in the community.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to the next question. So this one, how are the Inter-RAI assessment tool items concerning cognition, so that's section C and E3, on wandering, taken into consideration in determining a past service needs? How are these items considered if there is no doctor letter provided with a dementia diagnosis? So we're looking on how you're using the tool for wandering and safety of individuals, and we'll start with you, PMC.
We do not have a specific guidelines for if wandering, then it is, this impacts personal assistance service in certain needs, but again, it's a holistic picture. And as noted, we do not require the doctor to give us a dementia diagnosis, but there are additional conditions. Traumatic brain injury, for example, is one that we do encounter a lot with wandering. With that, how and where and when does the wandering occur? And what are the different needs for that? In addition to PAS, we also get people want personal alert systems. Is a wandering done during certain episodes where the person loses track of where they are, or is this a consistent theme? How does mental status fluctuate throughout the day? So it's, again, we look at the entire Inter-RAI, we look at the holistic picture, but beyond the assessment, we're having a conversation with the person. We are personalizing this and with their loved ones. I have to really, I can't state this enough. And then looking at all the conditions and how does that impact per the service.
Thank you. Mara Health?
This is Ashley with Mara Health. So we also follow a similar process. We do review all aspects of the Inter-RAI, so section C on cognition and the section on wandering. We look at progress notes, the walk me through your day, that can identify any supervision needs that is related to wandering when wandering is reported. And then we also take the caregiver or family reports of wandering or safety concerns into consideration during our review process.
PHW?
So for us, we do use the Inter-RAI assessment. It really plays an important role in looking at the members' needs. We're really happy with the updated questions in the V10 version. They've really been able to identify this cognition and wandering and really ask additional questions around, what that need is for the participant, how is it currently being monitored, what is that need for PASS. So we're really reviewing, again, that overall functional status, any reported risk, whether that be from the participant, somebody in the community, a physician, anybody involved, caregivers, and then we're looking at that assessment to determine whether that cognitive impairment creates a need for task services. So really, again, we don't need that letter from a physician because we understand that not everybody that has a memory issue is going to have a dementia diagnosis or Alzheimer's diagnosis. We're really looking at that picture as a whole and determining their need for each one of those tasks.
Thank you. And I think that was the end of the set of questions, so we'll go to questions here, and I'm going to start off with the question, actually. The question I have for you, if you have a participant that seems to be okay at 10 a.m. in the morning when you go to assess them, but you get reports that at 5 in the afternoon they're not, or in the evening when the sun goes down and the light dims, that they have wandering issues and confusion issues. How are you guys assessing for that? How are you working with the family and the participant on that? And we'll start with the Mayor Health.
Hi, this is Shasta with Mayor Health. I think that's really where observation comes in from, like, the caregivers or the family members, and they're telling us what exactly is happening. So when there's wandering, like you said, what time of day is that happening? What exactly are they doing in reference to that? How are they being redirected? Are there any health and safety concerns? I think it's also important to note that sometimes having a discussion as to if there's any kind of technology to help assist with that, like door bells and door alarms. I think that's pretty much. Yeah.
All right, PHW.
So when we're looking at that, we're looking at the member's daily routine. So the reason that we're going to focus on that and structuring that out is because we want to ensure that when we provide the past services in the member's home, that they're available during the times that they need them. So if they're sundowning in the evening, we want to make sure that they have that support. Like you said, if it starts at 5 o'clock throughout the night and they're up all day, but at 10 o'clock, that may be when they're having their breakfast and then laying down for their normal nighttime routine, even though it's the morning. So we're really looking at that daily routine, what the person has in their home currently, what's additionally needed, and ensuring that we're scheduling that past person who's coming in to really support their needs during the time that's needed. And additionally, with individuals with, cognitive functioning, we want to make sure that we follow up on that and ensure that that caregiver is going into the home the times that is needed, and the person isn't really getting taken advantage of, and the caregiver is coming in the times that they're available.
UPMC.
Similarly, when we are conducting the inter-eye, we are trying to capture not just what's going on in that unusual time and different circumstance that you're getting asked a couple hundred very personal questions about your life by a stranger or somebody you see once a year, but you are describing your daily routine, your weekly, how often do these activities happen, what's been going on last few months. Because in the ideal scenario, we're just assessing once a year and just update with monthly contacts and so on. But we do understand with complex situations, we will have feedback from the participants themselves as well as their loved ones. And this happens at this hour of the night. We will have people tell us that they wake up at 3 a.m. and then suddenly start engaging in different symptoms and behaviors. And the other thing is, of course, if it is dementia or similar, you will see the progressive decline over time of symptoms that were not there and not captured by anyone at that time correctly, but maybe 2 months later, the wandering starts. And that's where we would have the loved ones or other professionals report that to us so that we can reassess because there's a change in needs and presentation.
All right, thank you, folks. As we move forward for questions, I'm going to thank the panel from all three MCOs coming up and speaking on this. I'm going to open it up questions to the advisory board or the council only at this point in time. So anybody with questions?
Are there any questions in the room? Ready?
Lloyd?
You did know. Yes, I do have one. And you may have covered it, John, in that last comment you made. But as we all know, there are a number of different types of cognitive impairments, and some of them can take place over a really extended period of time. And some of them can take place overnight or over a couple of months. how are you able to, and of course they'll result in very different approaches to dealing with the dementia. How are you able to establish that time frame of the development of the cognitive impairment within your enrollees?
Well, Lloyd, you brought up dementia and also cognitive impairment. So cognitive impairment, again, can come through a lot of different conditions. And if somebody's in the throes of different medical episodes, we'll be collecting a lot of information from various professionals as people go to the ER or see different specialists for this and that. And that can help further illustrate if something needs to be reassessed and something needs to be tailored. Dementia, it does not happen the same in two different people, different stages, or even the type of dementia you are in. So since we are not having a service coordinator to take the role of a geriatrician, neurologist, or psychologist, but plan per the model, these are the needs now. If there is a change of status, go with that, but we cannot predict, is this person going to deteriorate quite rapidly over time or not? And our own staff have their own loved ones at home, quite a few, who are going through the same. So they have firsthand experience working with this not only at work, but when they leave work at home. I myself, in the course of the job, had to support my father-in-law, and just seeing how, he's great for a week. Oh, it's kind of slowing down. Maybe it's improving, and then, the next day we're getting a call from my brother-in-law that if he wants to take a taxi cab to go back to his farmlands that he lost 40 years ago, it's yucca season. They got to take care of that. I'm like, oh, okay, who do we call now? What do we do about the doors? He's wandering out. And then he's perfectly fine and talking to me about like nothing happened the next day. So it is variable. Can we predict that? One day with science gets it all very perfect for each type of cognitive delay and issue and so on. We know it's protein so-and-so that's affecting this neural pathway over here. Therefore, based on the diet and other genetic factors, then we know that these symptoms will occur over the next 45 days. That would be great when we get there. We're not there yet, so at this point it is report from professionals, caregivers, and person themselves as what's the progressive course of that disease, their condition, their ADLs, IEDLs, and how can we support them.
All right. This PHW, you want anything to add to that?
I would just like to add that may be a scenario where we put a temporary authorization in place to have a caregiver in the home for that supervision, to really monitor and look at what's happening in the home to support that participant in receiving additional, care, whether it be from their neurologist, PCP, any other services. We may start to look at like an adult daycare center where maybe they're out in the community and getting some socialization, working with our TBI providers to see, if there's something that maybe they could benefit from there, a service that they offer. So we would be looking at, trying to have somebody in that home, monitoring them, ensuring the SC is doing that monthly contact, doing a face-to-face quarterly visit for that person, just to ensure that if we need to do that trigger assessment or reassess or change services, that can happen immediately, whether it be on a permanent basis or a temporary basis.
Okay, Mayor Health, anything else?
I would agree with that as well. I would look at the medical documentation from both of the primary care doctors as well as the specialist, and then also look at previous interis, PSSTs, and walk me through your days to track that.
Thank you. Any other questions in the room? It's just open for board members at this point.
Hey, this is Pam Waltz. I have a couple of questions. Oh, sorry.
They were looking for people in the room. Are there no questions in the room, Lloyd? Sorry.
Yeah, no other ones. So go ahead, Pam.
All right, go ahead, Pam.
Okay. One question is specific for AmeriHealth. On the question about whether you require a cognitive functional assessment, the question was really intended to be, do you require a cognitive functional assessment by an outside, like, medical provider? So that's one. And then my second question for all of the MCOs that don't have space on their time and tasking tool to add time for supervision related to safety monitoring or wandering. Why does your time and task tool not include time for safety monitoring and supervision?
So, Mayor Health.
Hi. This is Gina with AmeriHealth. We do not require a functional cognitive assessment by a neurologist or outside provider, but we do look as part of the participant's assessment at these pieces. As stated, our inner RAI does assess for those cognitive functions, and we take recommendations from the caregivers, from the family members, from the participant themselves as far as how they're functioning day to day and what might be impairing their functional needs. We also do, as stated, suggest and recommend assessment from a provider, whether it be your family care provider or else, because we do want to make sure that if there is a cognitive decline, that the cause of the decline is being assessed and treated appropriately.
Okay, so you want to address the time and tasking tool?
Hi, it's Missy Weekland with AmeriHealth Caritas Houston. First, thanks for your question, Pam. Our time and task tool does not include time for supervision because we really need to drill down on the hands-on care that's needed for participants, so we focus on just those areas. If supervision is also needed as part of those areas of hands-on care, that can be included in the documentation, but there's times when supervision is needed and no hands-on care is being provided. And therefore, it's not showing up on our time and task tool. However, it is being taken into consideration as a need for safety by the service coordinator and the team that is looking at the person-centered plan of care. And we do take feedback, as the team had said, from informal supports, informal caregivers on those routines throughout the day. It's hard to just, put in supervision maybe 24 hours because that's needed. Then you have additional care in the time and task tool for the time that you need to do tasks. And so it is omitted because it is included in the person-centered service plan in another way.
All right, PHW.
So for PHW, we also removed that safety area for supervision because we really wanted to work with the SDs to be able to document the need in maybe a specific area. So one example of the trainings that I provide for individuals for wandering, we would add that time in locomotion or walking, and then we would walk the SD to walk us through, what that participant is doing during that time. Really, if you're just putting it in one specific section, it's really not giving the participant, giving the SC to give enough information on the participant in one box. We wanted to open it up to the entire time and task tool so that they could provide all that additional information and really spell out each step versus just saying, somebody needs support with X, Y, and Z in one sentence. So we're really looking at it as a whole, what's the daily task needed, what's the supervision, what's the queuing, and kind of spelling that out in each section.
UPMC?
It is not excluded. The rest of the questions apply otherwise.
All right. Kathy?
Thank you. I have two general questions. One is, how do you measure the participants with dementia satisfaction with services? And when you do cut PASS or other services, do you monitor for any adverse outcomes to quickly address them? And my second question is, I'm just curious if any of the MCOs are participating with the Department of Aging's Alzheimer's disease and related disorders task force working to update the state plan. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to, what did you say for the first question? What were you specifically identifying? Sorry.
First question about how you get participants living with dementia. How do you assess satisfaction with the services? And when you do cut PASS and other services, do you monitor for any adverse outcomes to address them?
Okay. So for any services that we would cut in the member's home, we would really be looking at how they're participating in that additional activity. So we'd be maybe having that service coordinator go to the adult daycare center, or whatever they're receiving that service through, to kind of see how they're participating in the services there, if it's really benefiting the person, getting any reports or care plans from those providers so that we could see their progress in those areas. If we would determine that that was not meeting their specific need, we would absolutely then send that SC back out to get those services back in place in the home if what was put in place isn't really in the best interest of our participants. And then we really want to look at making sure that we are determining permanent hours long term and not just always putting in temp increases. So I think I talked a little bit about that earlier, but if we identify that needs long term, and I think on Lloyd's question is, you know, sometimes we have to put those services in place even if it's something that may not be needed one day a week, but it's needed the additional 6. So we always want to make sure somebody's in that home, securing that person, making sure they're safe, making sure their needs are met. And then, you know, we're talking to the participant for as much as they're able to answer, how they're satisfied with their services, working with maybe a POA or guardian, their caregivers, kind of to get some of that feedback if they're not able to express it. And then obviously looking at any of the CAP surveys and things of that nature to follow up with our participants.
All right, UPMC?
As far as satisfaction in services, people with dementia, I've found, are quite vocal about whether they're satisfied with the service or not. We will hear from them when we do our check-ins as per agreed with the person, be it monthly or how it would be. It's also something that we would see in the process of observation. We would also hear this from providers, and unless it's a few people with dementia who are living completely alone, we would also be hearing from their family members quite definitely if there's something less than satisfactory with the service and ways to improve. But again, as my colleagues are alluding, there is a process of observation how the person is in their environment and with their services, and then addressing accordingly. As far as the second part regarding the work group, I would have to take that back and get back to you on that.
Mayor Health?
Missy Weekland with AmeriHealth Caritas. As far as the question of satisfaction, I'm going to say ditto to my colleagues. We do ask the participants and their families. We also hear from providers if they're concerned. They have multiple ways they can get in touch with us, including the HHA portal. We also are checking on participants to answer Kathy's question about anybody who is issued a reduction. If that reduction does go into effect, we do follow up with the participant to be sure that their needs are being met. If we find that they have unmet needs following that reduction, we can always go back in for a triggering event assessment. And to answer your question about the work group with aging for the state plan, we are not currently engaged with aging or the Alzheimer's Association regarding the specific state plan. However, we do have a relationship with the Alzheimer's Association, and we also are funding for training for direct care workers to go through some trainings that were developed in conjunction with the Alzheimer's Association. So we do have involvement. Kathy, I wasn't sure if that might help answer some of your questions.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Matt, real quick, this is Randy. I'm going to wrap this up because, like I said, I have to leave. So I'm just going to make a general comment here, folks. This is, as you know, this is the last meeting I'm going to be at on this side of the table, at least. My last day is next Friday. I am retiring. I am out of here. But I wanted to let you know that I've worked with this committee for a long time as we brought up community health choices. I've been here since the beginning of community health choices. It's been primarily my life for the last 10 years. Have gone through a lot of iterations of people on this committee, a lot of dedicated individuals who want to improve the services and ultimately the lives of our participants and provide them the needed services to keep them in the community and living the way they want to live. Wanted to let you know that I appreciate all the work that you guys have done. I appreciate the opportunity to work with you. You know, we've worked together to accomplish a lot of things in this program. We've butted heads along the way, but we've worked through the process. And I want to tell you that I appreciate the work you've done. I encourage you to continue to push the envelope and to let your opinions and your knowledge be used and known to drive this program forward and to address some of the issues that are occurring with the budget and at the federal level, and really push the envelope to continue to provide the best services for individuals that need them in this program. And with that being said, here's a little mic drop, and I'm out of here.
Wow. Thank you, Randy. I was almost afraid we weren't going to hear his voice today.
All right, Madam Chair.
Can I give it back? Well, I get if the panel's not there anymore, can we still ask?
Is the panel still there? I know Randy.
I don't know. I'm not in the room.
Yeah.
Now I think Randy closed.
We're here.
Randy, I think Randy closed this segment since we're back into public comments.
Okay. Well then.
But certainly, if there are additional questions for the MCOs, hold on. If there are additional questions for the MCOs, the committee members can certainly send them to the OLTL team. We'll get them answered. If folks in the audience had comments or feedback, they can certainly use the usual resource account for the LTSS subcommittee, and we'll do the follow-ups as we usually do.
Okay. Well, that said, Patrick, do you have a comment or question?
Yes, this was a two-part question for the MCOs if they're still in the room representing the Brain Injury Association of Pennsylvania. Do the MCOs know what percentage of persons served have an identified cognitive impairment while completing the inter-RAI? And the second part of that question was, for those identified with a traumatic brain injury, how many are offered cognitive rehabilitation therapy in addition to PAS services?
So we will send that out to the CHC MCOs, but I can share a couple of things. If you want the percentage of individuals who have an identified cognitive related diagnoses, our OLTL team can get that data to you in aggregate, and we can do that as a follow-up. It may not be for some time because it has to go through data governance, but we're happy to supply that. With regards to cognitive rehabilitation therapy, SCs should be educating and providing services that meet needs to every participant of the program, regardless of diagnosis, if they meet the need for that service. So I can answer that broadly for the program. Otherwise, you're going to get dittos from the CHC MCOs. But good questions.
I want to just follow up real quick with something Pam said to the MCOs earlier. She was talking about the safety, and the two MCOs said that it's considered somewhere else. I would really love to hear what considered means. I mean, that sounds like something you say as a CYA. Oh, sure, we considered it.
Yeah. Matt, can I piggyback on that?
Go ahead.
It's Pam. Yeah, I was going to follow up on that. When they say they consider it, we don't see that happen. I mean, we read a lot of, we have clients appealing denials and reductions. We do a lot of reading of the records, including service coordination records and records. And the reason that we ask the question about why safety monitoring and supervision are not included in the PSST is that we see for the MCOs that don't include it in their time and task tools, what we see is the decisions hewing very closely to the outcome of the of the time and task tool, and being very, very focused on those responses to ADLs and IADLs. And what we don't see is in the notes is much consideration of supervision needs. The service coordinators will will often note that need, but it tends to be not taken into consideration, kind of ignored, when it is reviewed and taken out with the reviewers really just sticking very closely to the results in the time and task tool. So I also have a real question about how it's considered, and I think we really do need something more than just that very general language.
Yeah, we will send that out for a follow-up so that they can supply a specific response, Pam. We are aware and have been working, I think in particular with a couple of the CHC-MCOs where you have highlighted and sent us specific examples. And our medical director has had conversations with his peers on that specific topic. To ensure that that area is improved. And our team is gearing up to provide additional monitoring. What I would request, as you do, is to continue to send us those examples. It is my hope that you will begin seeing a significant change in that documentation, particularly with the areas that you have shared with us already. We have certainly made it clear our expectations, and we'll be providing more monitoring and oversight in that particular space, having raised it with the CHC-MCOs in our meetings with them. So definitely they will get the asks. My team is taking the notes, and we should see that as a response in the follow-ups.
Thank you, Juliet.
Any more questions from committee members? Anybody in the room? If not, we will go to the box. On to you, Paula.
Hi, Matt. This is Paula. Brenda Dare is asking, when discussing exceptions to Medicaid work requirements, medical frailty is its own category. How is it defined?
So that is a very good question, Brenda. It is still in process. As many of you may be aware, the CMS had sent out some additional technical guidance on medical frailty with a definition that we believe goes beyond the scope of what was intended in HR 1. Many states have sued over that, and unfortunately we did not get the injunction we wanted, but there will be the judge and the courts have committed to hearing the merits of the case, and a good portion of that is surrounding that very question. So it is a little bit in flux at the federal level.
And Juliet, can I add to that a little bit?
100%, Pam.
Okay, this was a part of the update on the stakeholder meeting that we just didn't have time for, and so Brenda, I would really direct you to the slides from pages 30 on that go into this. I was going to describe it in my update and didn't have a chance to, and I don't know if there's time now, but I'd be happy to talk with you about it, and it is described in the slides. Basically, the department is grouping conditions into 3 categories, some of which are going to be considered serious enough in and of themselves to be considered to create medical frailty, some of which are temporary acute conditions that will be considered to exempt people on for as long as that condition exists, and then a middle category where there's going to be a diagnosis plus consideration of other factors to determine whether or not they meet the IFR's new requirement that the condition significantly affect somebody's ability to work. And so in addition to the diagnoses, The department is going to be looking at factors like how high acuity is it, how frequently, with the frequency of treatment needed, whether it requires treatment that's high risk or needs a lot of monitoring like dialysis and chemo, whether people are getting services that reflect a functional impairment like DME or home health, and whether they have additional risk factors that indicate that that diagnosis is serious enough in that person to impair their ability to work.
Yeah, and I would add that is the approach that we hope to take in Pennsylvania. We believe it's a good approach. We believe it's, for our purposes, the right approach. We have not received kind of approval from on our approach, but certainly we believe that it is in a positive direction because CMS has referred other states to us to learn more about the approach that we are taking. So to sort of my earlier point, I can't say definitively that that is the definition. It is the route we are going pending CMS approval and acceptance of that process. And certainly we are running short on time and hope to hear something definitively from CMS at some point.
Thanks to both of you.
Yeah. But yes, I do believe, and Pam did a really good job summarizing it, that is the way we want to go. 100%.
I have a question or comment from somebody in the room from the audience who has been waiting very patiently for the last 20 minutes, I'd say. Oh, not sure we can go next to that.
Who's that talking?
This is John from UPMC, one of the MCOs. We're still hanging around, by the way, with the panel. And when we were in follow-up questions to the panel, we did have an audience member, had a follow-up comment. My apologies if I'm now out of turn, but we were last left off on that.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I wasn't clear. The panel is excused. Christian, we are in public comments. I'm going to look to my staff in the room, Damaris or Jan, to steward questions, if that's all right.
Hi, Juliet. This is Damaris. We do have a question from Shauna, if we're taking public comments now.
Yes, please. Go ahead, Shauna.
Hi, thank you. I have actually 3 subjects I want to discuss. The panel is still sitting here, so I'm going to talk about the cognitive question first. As a person who works with a lot of folks with disabilities, I understand how, and I heard it, a 200-question survey can be very daunting and could maybe in some ways affect the outcome of the answers, especially if that 200 questions was asked all at one time. I'm not sure any of us could do that. So that's concerning. The other thing that I wanted to say about that is that I think now more than ever is the time that Pennsylvania really needs to look at supported decision-making over guardianship, because we have a practice in the elder community in particular of guardianship, and for people with disabilities as well. Just because someone cannot maybe make financial decisions doesn't mean they can't direct their own care, and often we see that being abused. So I'd really like Pennsylvania to look at supported decision making as a model in lieu of guardianship. That's one thing.
So, Shauna, can I respond to that very quickly and kind of go through topic by topic? One is absolutely supported decision making is something that we support in Pennsylvania. We do a lot of work with, and have done a lot of work with guardianship, and we continue to do a lot of work with guardianship. We absolutely do not want to take away someone's rights. unnecessarily, and appointing a guardianship is a very, very critical thing. And the Office of Long-Term Living does have the position where we want to make sure that we support the person's independence and autonomy as much as possible. And I'll point to an example of that. Over the last 3 years, we have done the significant guardianship work in our adult protective services area, for example, and doing a lot of work there along this philosophy. And you'll see that guardianship appointments have gone down drastically by the hundreds to the point that the courts had provided our team feedback that they were very much impressed with how we have reduced guardianship appointments over the last few years, and it was very noticeable in their court hearings. And so, 100% agree. We want to support people, lift them up, consider all alternatives prior to any kind of guardianship appointment.
Thankfully, when I was 17, I had a wise judge. Otherwise, my family might have declared me mentally incompetent, and it would be a very different outcome today. But that's one comment that I wanted to make. But the other two have to do with, first, House Bill 1939. It's an House bill for ODP, and there's going to be a hearing on August 18th. But it has to do with rate settings. And when I read it, I wondered why OLTL wasn't included. And so I would really ask that OLTL be as forward as ODP in getting legislation that kind of helps us define when rates are increased in these services. And then my last comment, just to go on record, and I know I spoke with Damaris about this already, the transportation report that is coming out, there were one and maybe 15 minutes worth of consumer stakeholder sessions regarding transportation. The second one was canceled because there was no interpreter available. And I was wondering, and I know Damaris is going to get me some information, but I wanted to go on record because I'm being texted by members of my community who are listening to this. I was wondering how stakeholder input was really gathered and whether there's still opportunity for stakeholder input, because there are people that felt like they were not completely heard in those stakeholder meetings that we had, especially the one that was canceled due to a lack of interpreter.
I will certainly look into that. What I can say, Shauna, is that, OLTL is not like a one-time situation. I would share the LTSS committee resource account with those individuals and encourage them to submit their comments and their thoughts about any and anything related to the LTSS services and systems. In addition, the CHC RFI was an opportunity to provide public comment very specifically to the services related to CHC. I hope that, I haven't gone deeply into the comments. I hope individuals took advantage of that also additional comment avenue. There is, for individual situations, the participant hotline is available. So, Shauna, you know these things, right? So, certainly go back to them. OLTL is always open for feedback, and folks can use those resource accounts in this public comment period at any point in time to provide that feedback to us.
Any other questions, Paula?
Matt, this is Paula. Yes, I have a question from Rico Shepherd. She's asking, what trainings do service coordinators receive on available assistive technology?
Hi, Rika. Thank you for that question. If you go to my slide in my OLTL updates, we just published a whole slew of additional resources and SC-specific trainings around assistive technology, diving deeper into that subject than sort of the basic training that SCs might provide. And so all of that training and those additional resource materials are available on our website for anyone to see, engage with, take as part of our Pennsylvania Tech Accelerator. So thank you for that question and allowing me additional opportunity to highlight those opportunities for everyone.
The next question, this is Paula. The next question is from Jeff Eisman. What is OLTL doing to address any HCBS consumer Medicaid services and supports whose immigration status is in question? Also, is there anything in this space regarding direct care workers who may have a similar status, and any discussions with providers?
Very good questions, Jeff. I can tackle them one by one. So, unfortunately, we cannot control how the feds determine who would have sort of citizen rights and status and who doesn't. And there certainly have been changes in temporary protective status that we are aware of and we are very concerned about. With regards to participants, our staff have worked very closely with the Office of Income Maintenance to identify anyone who may have a change of status from the changes at the federal level, and identify them so that we can begin work on evaluating alternative services for them. If they are not eligible for the federal programs, federally funded programs, then we cannot continue their enrollment in community health choices. We do have the Act 150 program for individuals under the age of 60 and the options program through the Department of Aging for individuals over 60, though I can't speak to whether or not that there are also additional restrictions with regards to the aging services. My team will be looking at that as well. For individuals who would be eligible for the Act 150 program, which is a state-funded program, we will certainly be working through the PAIEB and our community-based partners and our advocates to support them with any eligible transition that can be made to continue to support them. The individuals who have been identified will, it may have already been, but will be also communicated with the current service providers and service coordinators who are supporting them to try and assist as much as possible with alternative planning prior to their ineligibility status. It is unfortunate. I wish I could change the situation, but we have to operate within the mandates of the federal government. So that's with the participants. We have received outreach with some organizations that would very much like to work closely with us on this transition and provide their feedback. We will be having this as a topic in our participants and advocates call. It's certainly very important to us. There are a little over 600 individuals that we've identified so far. I don't have the exact number to share at the top of my head, but that is the sort of the universe of souls that we know will be tremendously impacted. Now, flipping over to the provider side, it is also very similarly concerning, and we understand the impact to individuals in our industry and in our workforce who have worked diligently to serve Pennsylvanians that may now find themselves ineligible to work. It is incumbent upon the to have planning for that within their operations. Again, I don't mean to sound unempathetic. I am not. This is not where we want to be, but it is where we are. And so there will be potentially transitions for participants in our programs because they will have dedicated direct care workers whom they may have worked with, or nurses or other clinical staff that they have worked with within their service plan that will now no longer be eligible to work with them. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is not able to sort of circumvent the federal rules around citizenship, unfortunately. So I wish there was more that we can do, but unfortunately, this is where we are today. I hope that answers your question, Jeff, and thank you for raising up this important issue. It's so important for us to be mindful of what's happening at the federal level as much as it is what's happening at the state.
I don't know why you keep asking me to.
Carol, can you mute your microphone, please? Unless you have something to ask. Back to you, Paula.
Matt, this is Damaris. We do have a question in the room.
Go ahead.
Hi, thank you. This is Misty Dion with Roads to Freedom Center for Independent Living, and I just wanted to thank Shauna for raising the important topic of guardianship, and thank Juliet for your acknowledgement and continued work around the guardianship issues that we face. But I also wanted to raise that, Pennsylvania is not currently a state that recognizes supported decision making, so it's really important that we have our partners at the state level encouraging that to happen sooner rather than later, but also to the topic of the IRAs and the time and task assessments. It's very important, like Shauna brought up, to make sure that the participant's choice and control or direction is continued during the healthcare process, and whether or not they want to live in the community, which takes me to the next point of the nursing home transition continuing to be an administrative task, and hopeful that throughout the many public comments that the department received for Community Health Choices RFI, that will be a glaring one that the department and this committee take a look at, especially in consideration of how consumer decision making could be influenced by those assessments. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments in the room?
Nothing further, Matt.
Anything online, Paula?
Hi, Matt. This is Paula.
I see Natalia has her hand up.
Do you want me to continue, or you want to go to
No,
Natalia?
let me hold on one second. Natalia, do you have a question or a comment?
I wanted to go on record with regards to the cognitive support needs. Every time I come to one of these meetings and I hear the presentation and what is supposedly happening out here, it confirms to me that that is not a reality. And I want it to be noted that everyone mentioned quite a different conditions. Now, put in there someone that is a multiple lightning strike survivor who has cognition issue, that we already have the barrier of finding medical professionals who don't know how to deal with lightning strike survivors. And I've noticed that I just participated in a reassessment, and I noticed that they talk a lot about observation and what's happening while they're there. And even though it was mentioned, sometimes you can go to a participant home and you might see a lot of movement there with other family members there visiting, and observing and not asking questions is two different things. And I believe that cognitive support, I feel sorry for the service coordinators, because everything goes to the service coordinators. And put on top of that, doing an assessment with an LEP individuals that don't speak anything at all of English, and going through third parties to get these information and to get these observation and notes and activities implemented into a plan of service. And whenever I hear participant centered, I, as a participant, feel that we're not in the center. We're in the center for certain things, but not for what really matters for our health and safety. And I just wanted to put it out there. And I believe that the cognition, saying that they don't required or need a medical doctor, that's not true. I was just in an assessment, and they're waiting for a decision to be made. In order for that decision to be made, the family members have to get medical documentation of the conditions. So I just want to make that public and let it be known.
Thank you, Natalia. Go ahead, Paula, with the other question.
Hi, Matt. This is Paula. This last question relates to the CHCMCOs and the cognition. So I think Juliet had stated that we will be sending those questions to the CHCMCOs to be responded to.
Yes.
So I have no other questions in the chat.
Okay.
Matt,
Juliet.
looking at time, can I do my announcement as part of public comments?
Please.
Okay. I know we just have 1 minute, but this is important. So we have again announced additional investments for the Rural Health Care Transformation Plan. There was a press release that was sent out with regards to additional rounds of funding. The deadline for submitting an eligibility certification is quickly approaching. The funding is open for federally qualified health centers and federally qualified health center lookalikes until August 7th. The opportunity is open for hospitals, long-term care nursing facilities, behavioral health providers, and others that are listed on the RHTP website until August 14th. The funding opportunities are posted on the RHTP website. And there is also another funding opportunity that is set to open on August 17th for round 2 of the Rapid Response Stabilization. There is an RA email resource account specific to the RHTP funding, the Rural Health Transformation Plan. To bring it up here because those due dates are coming up fast, and I would like OLTL and LTSS providers to have the opportunity to respond to it. Please remember, RHTP has its own listserv and its own website, and while we are a part of it, we are not the lead, so we encourage our rural providers to please ensure they are registered on the listserv and routinely checking the website for any and all funding opportunities that may be put out, because we may not always highlight them timely in this particular meeting. So I wanted the opportunity to highlight that. We will send more information about this particular funding round through our LTSS because time is sensitive and urgent. But please, if you haven't done so, follow along the great work of RHTP. Thank you.
Great. With that, it is 12:58 on my clock. We hopefully will see you all on September 2nd. With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I second.
Okay, we're adjourned. See you in September.
Thank you.